Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
I want to know if you guys think that Ole's vision is coming together, because the pieces are starting to come, and it feels like the number 6 is one of the last pieces. The number 6, we sign that, and then we go and get that big Norwegian bastard next season, and then it's all complete. Does it feel to you guys that the vision's almost complete and this is the team that Ole wants? Does it feel like that to you? Because it looks almost perfect, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this. I always think that you hear a lot of chat when you talk to people in the pub, formation this, formation that. Actually, the most important thing about a football team is chemistry. And it doesn't matter what formation you play, you know, how many times you played on FIFA and it works, or Football Manager or anything like that. If you don't have the chemistry in a team, you won't progress. And that's actually what's happened with United. Even later on in Fergie's years and some of Fergie's teams, they lacked a tiny bit of chemistry. And he used to react to that. So he used to pluck out the little bacteria that was in and around it and move it away. And what Ole's done is, I think he's looked at the squad, knew he needed an overhaul, knew it was going to take 2, 3, maybe 4 years to get what he wanted, to get a style of player that he wants, to get the style of leadership that he needs, to be able to play the expansive game of football that everybody wants. And I think that slowly but surely, and it doesn't matter what we think of individual players on this, actually, slowly but surely, he seems to be by his vision. I don't want to use the Van Gaal philosophy nonsense, but it's they buy into his vision, and they're willing to look and listen to what he wants. And if we can keep this group of players together, with the addition of a defensive midfielder, whoever that may be, I mean, it's a topic we'll never know. You know, we can discuss till the cows come home who we want. But if we can get a really good central defensive midfielder, we've got a solid enough starting 11, or maybe top 14 or 15 players that could carry us a lot further this season than what we did last season. So I think he's, from an evolution point of view, from a time point of view, and I'm not going to go into the Ole ins and Ole outs bollocks, but I'll tell you something for nothing. Ole was never going to be sacked. It just wasn't going to happen. The board decided this was time now to really support somebody and see what they can do over a 3 or 4 or even 5 year period. And I think that's what you're seeing.
Just before anyone else jumps in, I just want to address this comment. Yes, he is buying a vision. So what? I don't understand why that's. I don't understand why that's a bad thing. Of course, that's what he has to do. Go on, Connor.
Yeah, I think the biggest change, the biggest thing you can look at with Ole and say this is how he's from when he came into what we hope going into next season is look at big games. It was always 5 at the back, 2 holding midfielders, sit back and invite all the pressure onto us. You only have to think back to last season against Man City, how we played against them, and how we obviously went back to 4 at the back. And next season, it looks like potentially we could go to a 4-3-3 next season. So that's progression in itself. And I think the main thing for me, like Stu said there about chemistry in the team, the players, bar the exception of maybe Pogba, but we're not going to get into that debate, actually want to play. And I think you'll get a lot more out of your team if the players actually want to be there and want to play. It's why you see giant killings in the FA Cup and why you see all the big, smaller teams beating bigger teams in the Premier League, because the players will give absolutely everything, run through a brick wall for the manager. And that's what I feel like you get with these players. You hear Varane and Sancho in their signing, they came because of the vision that Ole sold them on. And the dream of playing for Man United and playing under Ole and playing for with the players that are there. So yeah, he's massively improved. You only have to look at some of the squads that Ole had to put out at the start of his reign to look at what some of the teams we had next year and some of the predicted teams that we could have going into next season. It's a massive upgrade. So the fact the players actually want to be here is the biggest thing for me. Yes, having a likable team doesn't win you trophies, but it bloody helps. Actually going to Old Trafford and liking the team and liking, the way that we're playing and watching the players, they actually care. That means more to me, and it will show next season for sure.
I think
I'll just building. Sorry, James. Go on. I only had one small thing, actually. I only had one small thing to add to really what Connor was saying, and that is when people look at Ole overall, whatever their opinion is, I think we seem to forget sometimes that we got to 5 semi-finals, final. Yes, we didn't win them, but you've got to get there. You've got to win matches to get there. And people forget that. They get this hung up on the fact that you've got to a semi-final and you've lost. But you've got to win 6 or 7 games to get there. We finished third the season before. We finished second this season. And that's why I think the board are really behind Ole. And I think as a man manager and as somebody who gets the club, and people understand that, and people also, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but people also look at what he's won and things like that, and and Ole's one of the very few managers that's won the European Cup for a club and actually gone on to manage. And there's only a handful of managers that have actually done it, and it does go a long way with player acquisition and player belief. Not that I'm necessarily a believer in that myself, but it does. Sorry, James. Apologies. Just thought I'd get that in.
It was sort of 2 points. I don't want to drag on too long, but to build on Connor's sort of personality point, I think Ole's playing career is sort of drifting over to his managerial career because he's building a team of players that were like him, that are sort of grounded. I mentioned egos earlier, but when you think about it, there's not really that many in the squad. It's a group of players who just seem really humble and really hardworking. You look at Edison Cavani, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw. They're not. Well, Edison Cavani was a massive star and he's not acting like it. Whereas, Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire weren't and still aren't massive stars. I think Marcus Rashford seems really humble as well. And I think that's doing everyone a world of good. It's a much better dressing room now. But also talking on his vision, especially transfers. He came to Old Trafford, obviously famously changed the transfer policy, didn't he? They sort of completely clean slate. He wanted young British players in. That was his ideal. Obviously, we saw that with Wan-Bissaka, Dan James. But I think he's shown maturity in that he's changed his transfer strategy slightly in losing all these semi-finals and finals. I think he showed maturity in that he's recognised we need leadership in this team. That first full season under Ole, we were the youngest average age of a starting squad and we were still competing for top 4. So it showed you how talented and young our squad was. Now he's recognised that we're just lacking those big games. We lack that leadership, that experience. And he's gone out and done that. Alex Telles has that experience at the top level. He also has that age to provide leadership. Raphael Varane now. And I think this window's showing the perfect balance that he struck between youth and experience, in that we've brought in Jadon Sancho, one of the hottest prospects in the world, and we've brought in Raphael Varane, one of the most successful defenders of all time. So I think we are definitely seeing Ole's vision in full swing now. I think the only thing that will top it off is keeping Paul Pogba, because obviously before he came in, he famously said he'd build the entire squad around Paul Pogba, and I still think he believes that. I think he believes Paul Pogba's key. So I think if he can keep Paul Pogba on as well, he doesn't have many excuses. I'll say that.
Yeah. Just as we wrap up this topic, I want to answer a really good question here from Red Lords. How sustainable do we think the vision will be long term? So past Ole, is this new club structure and football strategy going to keep an ethos for signings that we've seen of late? Because that's the key part. You can build a squad, but then are you going to?
Well,
I'll continue my point when I'm back in the screen. Yeah. Are you going to continue it after that manager's gone and continue to back that manager?
I think it all depends on the personality of the manager that comes in. I think he has put the foundations in place. It's still a young squad. It's still a very talented squad. The players themselves this squad could go on to win the league, this exact squad, for the next 5 years. But if Ole leaves next year and you bring in an Antonio Conte or someone like that who's reputation comes before them and they want to run things how they want it run, I think that's when we might struggle. We need someone who is like Ole in that he can adhere to the club values, which is what we diverted from with Van Gaal and Mourinho, and it showed. So I think we need someone with that similar sort of ego, reputation, and personality. I think that would be key.
The likes of an Antonio Conte coming in, those days are over. I can't see you seeing that in the short term. What I am going to say, I'm going to make quite a bold statement here. Our manager right now is probably our future footballing director. I think once he steps aside from his managerial role, he will then go above, and you will see that continuity. It's a great question by Red Lords, actually. I like those types of questions because it does make you think and it makes you wonder. And we speak all the time, don't we, about club structure, and we talk about parasites, etc., etc. Now, Murto and Fletcher, I think, are a short-term appointment. I don't think they're the two that we necessarily need to move forward, and I think you'll find that Ole will move up as and when he leaves his role or whatever he does with. Because if you think about where Sir Alex was, if Sir Alex would have been a bit younger and had stepped down because he didn't want the day-to-day management, there's only one place he would have gone up to, and he went up to the board of directors anyway. But he would have been a brilliant fit from the board to the footballing side, and I think this is a bit of a big picture master plan, because that's where I would post Ole.
Interesting. I think that's a fair point, and I'd love to see if that does happen, because I think that's a big claim that you just made there. Fred Woodward, I understand that you don't want to talk about Ole leaving, but it's an important part of it, because there's no point having one manager do one thing a certain way and then move on and have him doing something completely different. You have to consider that. Like, isn't that fair?
Can I also add that with that comment, we're not looking past Ole. I think that's almost impossible in the modern game. You're not going to get another Ferguson at the top level who stays at a club for 25 years. I think Pep Guardiola's got a few years left at City, Klopp a few years left at Liverpool. I don't think managers come to clubs to build legacy anymore. I think they want to prove themselves at other clubs as well. So I don't see a future, whether he's successful or not, where Ole either sticks around for 10 years or whether United keep Ole around for 10 years.